Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Carola Lilienthal, and I want to talk to you about how we changed our world. And we, for me, is the community of people who develop software. And I'm going to try to talk to you about what I see, what we have done. I'm going to start with a short presentation of myself. My name is Carola. And my last name is even more German, complicated in English, Lilienthal, but in English it's Lily Valley. So if you can talk to me like, but you can just say Carola. You find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Carola Li. Don't ask me why there is an E inside. It just happened, you know. I really don't know. And I have studied computer science at the University of Hamburg, and I finished there in 1995 with my diploma. So I finished my studies when Java started to live. You know, I started to study when there was no Java. For you to imagine how long this is. And since then, well, I have programmed a lot. Obviously, it started with C++ because there was no Java, and then there came Java and C# and a little bit of TypeScript and all that stuff. But what happened too is that I started to be a consultant, flying around Germany mostly, trying to not fly so much anymore now, because you know why. So we try to do it with trains. But anyway, so I worked as a consultant for agile development, for architecture, for all kinds of stuff. And I did a lot of trainings. And I don't know if this works for you, but those two ladies are the trainers for the German football team. So they are actually trainers. And I did a lot of training for Java. I remember someone in a Java training coming towards me and saying, well, but you don't think that this language will grow any bigger, you know? I mean, this is just another object-oriented language. So it was really funny then. And I've did a lot of architecting. I love this picture so much because you see it's a woman, you know? And in 2015, I wrote a book, first in German, on sustainable software architecture. Now you can read it as well in English, where I put in everything I know about architecture. Some DDD is in there too. And this is because in our company, we discovered domain-driven design in 2004. We read the book, the blue book, and we were like shocked because we did something a bit similar, and we said to ourselves, in here, there are so many better ideas, we're just going to do that. And in our company, we actually programmed since 2004 following the Blue Book. And this is why I translated the book of Vogue Vernon into German with Henning, who was here several times too. And our company is called Workplace Solutions. Exists since 1999, I think. Yeah, 20 years already. WPS. And we are in Hamburg, and we are now 120 people. And if you look at it, you see a lot of women. We have 25% female developers in our company. The other day I said that at a meetup, and a guy in the front row said, oh, this is where they all went to, you know? So if you want to be where all the women are, you know. And we have started our first bureau in Berlin, but only 2 men up to now. Well, but we're working on it, you know. And, well, we have a head count of 120 people now, and we are all developers. Well, we have some interaction, UX design people these days, but this is a different story. And all of our colleagues, they love to program. They love to get the machine to do what they want to. They love to try out new stuff. And they had fun with that in all their computer science studies. And then they get into a company and they realize, there is more than just me and my machine, me and my program. And they realize, wow, there is some people who are doing the quality management, some testers who are sending us bug reports, and there is a project management that gives us deadlines and plans, and there are users, but at that time when I started to program, we were even not allowed to talk to them. You know, they were just talking with a project manager to get their features and programs. And there is an operation unit in companies who talks to us about production problems. And well, if something goes wrong, you know, if something doesn't work, people start to do finger pointing and searching for the one who did wrong. And, well, quite often, because we are at the end of the chain, you know, it's us, you know, us developers who did something wrong, who have to save the company, save the system, whatever. And, well, I think this is something that the developers in the 70s already realized, you know, that it was always their fault. And, well, what did they do? What did all the software developers since 1966, when it started, what did they all do? Well, they did what we learned. They try to find solutions for the problems, you know? And if you are at the end of the chain and everybody is always telling you, you are the problem, you did something wrong, then we try to do something about it. And this is what we did from my point of view. We started to fix these problems in our computer science society. The first problem we attacked, actually, was this story with the bug reports, you know, testers and quality managers telling us that something went wrong. Actually, testers are a very interesting type of people, you know. Being a software tester is a lot like being a detective, you know. And this is how they work from my experience with them like 20 years ago. I was working on a container terminal, and we were trying to get some huge system running, and we were not sure about a requirement. And one of our business analysts wrote down something, how we wanted to do something for the users. And I was sort of young, and I thought, well, I could ask the tester, who is normally testing this part of the domain, what he thinks about this feature, this requirement. And I sent it to him and asked the tester, well, what do you think about it? And a day later, I got an email. The answer was, well, the format in which the requirement is described doesn't fit our format of describing requirements. He didn't even think about that. I was asking him something about the feature, about the domain, but he thought I was asking him about the structure. This was my best experience with a tester detective, you know. And and the other thing, I think, what developers realized is, or actually it was Barry Boom who realized that in the 1890s, that the cost of changes or of mistakes that you find in your software, of bugs, gets more and more expensive over time. So this is the cost, and this is the time over here. And if you do requirements engineering and you find a misunderstanding, a mistake, well, you just try to understand it better, and it doesn't cost much. If the designer discovers mistakes, there's already something done, so it costs more. If the developer discovers the mistake, it costs more again. But if the tester discovers the mistake, it's quite late. And if the user discovers the problem, the bug, it's even more expensive. So what Barry Boom said at those times, late changes are expensive. So this is another reason why just having the testers discover mistakes is too late in the whole software development story. And someone found a solution. It was in 1997, Ken Beck and Eric Gamma were on the plane towards the Uppsala conference to America from Zurich. They came from Zurich. And what do two good programmers do when they have 10 hours of a flight? Well, they program, and they pair programmed JUnit at that time in the airplane. And when they arrived, it was done, And this is something that really helped us, from my point of view. Who's doing unit testing here or working in pro? Wow, it's getting better every time I ask this question. Perfect. Keep on doing it because it will, it really saves your life, So this was a very good solution for this problem, and it was 1997, so it's quite a while ago. Of course, this cost some time, it, and actually the important story is to have a lot of unit tests, some integration tests, and some UI tests. This is the test pyramid, and it's not a good idea to change it around. You all know that probably. So unit testing is actually the point, and today we do even more. We not only find bugs and have, because we do testing and have fewer bugs, we as well use metric tools. Who is using something like SonarQube or something similar? Okay. The others should start. And for bad design and bad architecture, we have even more tools today to do architecture analysis. If you're interested in that, look in my book. We are getting better with the quality problem, with the quality problem. But this was only one thing. The second story was the story with the project managers and the deadlines and the plans. You all know that. If we are too late, it's the fault of the developers, isn't it? If we break a deadline, it's our fault. But actually, we all knew that the development process is something like this, isn't it? We all knew that. And I think the people back then knew it too. This is a Hamburgian computer scientist who every week creates a new Geek and Poke. You can find them on the internet if you search for Geek and Poke. They are wonderful. I really love them. And so this is how we do it. So, but they tried to tell us what we should do, and they came with this waterfall model. By the way, the poor man who wrote this article about software development, where this first thingamy-bob was inside with all those steps, he actually wrote about it that it's not good to do it. But everybody is citing his paper and saying that he invented the waterfall model, which is not true. So he really was not happy in all his life, and he was not accepted on conferences and all that stuff. So don't do things like that. Don't start with, this is the bad, and just start with the solution and then explain the problem. What did we do? Well, our community did something great. We invented the Agile Manifesto, things that you all know, individuals and interactions over processes and so on. And I will revisit this story with the cost curve because it's very, very interesting to look at that from today, from the Agile point of view. I showed you this before, the cost curve. Well, and Barry Boom saying late changes are expensive. Well, if we look at what he did today, because he digged in data, what he did was he measured on projects that followed the waterfall model. And the effect was that he said, well, we have to do better requirement engineering. This is why the analysis phase increased after his findings, because if we find problems early, mistakes, we will end up with less cost. But this is actually not true. What is actually true is that what he found out is that late feedback is expensive. That's the point. Late feedback is expensive. And this is why we invented agile development. And if you do it the right way, the cost curve looks like this. You get feedback for your after each iteration, after each cycle, and by this you find the mistakes early enough to remember what you did when you built it. And the problem is that the feedback is too late in the other case. Okay, so this was great. We had the Agile Manifesto. This was 2001 to get project managers to work better with us, with what we did. But I look a lot on projects, and today it's really frustrating what they are doing, because people have misunderstood something. What the Agile idea of creating software in cycles actually means is that we do an expedition, that we know we want to get up to that hill up there, but we don't know the way. And the process shows us the way. This is the point. So what we are actually doing when we are doing Agile is we start and we think our goal is here. This is the assumed solution at project start. And we have a quite big scope to decide. And we do the first iteration and we create a little software system that works. And we look at, oh, the goal moved. And we go on like this until the final solution, which might be up here. And the point is, the critical point is that we have to have someone who approves our small solution step by step, and tells us, this is right, you can leave it that way. We found all the mistakes. I come very often into companies, and they say, we are Agile. And I say, okay, when do you deliver to the user? And they say, well, we have releases for a year. Aha. And the users are testing. No, this is not possible. They just test before the release. You know, this is like that. This is what they do, okay? And then I say, well, you are not different from waterfall. But we are doing iterations. We are planning our tasks into iterations. My answer then is, well, I'm sorry, but I'm very sure that the people in waterfall times as well planned their tasks into time. You know, they had a plan when they would do something. It was not, you know, the implementation phase was organized. You know, it was not just a long implementation phase. So the point is, it's not enough to think that we are planning our tasks into iterations. This doesn't work, because what will come out is this. Imagine we are doing feature 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the first iteration. And then we are showing the result to someone, and we are doing the next iteration. 4, 5, 6, 7, and the next one, and the next one, and then comes the release, and the testers and the users try out, and they say no, because there was a problem. This is too late. Huh? What we have to do is we have to start with 1, 2, 3, 4, and get someone to try this out, this small thingamabob, and to tell us 1 is okay, you can leave it like that, 2 as well, 3 as well, but 4 is somehow not right. You have to change it. And this is the point. And then we get approval for that. This means you will never have to change it again if the world is not tumbling down, you know. 5 was completely wrong. 4 is now right. We get approval, and now it's 5, 8 is wrong, and we go on like this, and finally we get an approval for the release because we got approvals on the way. The funny thing about it is, if you're doing waterfall, you feel a bit like this. You jump out of a window and you fly and fly and fly, and it's quite hard, you know, if you get down to the floor at the end. With Agile development, it hurts too. But it hurts just a bit every step we fall down. Okay. But it hurts too. It's not always wonderful. Huh? Okay, but this helped us a lot. But then the third problem somehow got evident. Why is the user never happy? What can we do? You know, we have JUnit in Agile, and actually the people who did Agile development already thought about that. I don't know if you remember extreme programming, and they had an on-site customer. They had someone a customer on site in the development team to ask him all questions about what he did. But this was just an agile development. Another thing came about, and this was Scrum. And they had something, a product owner. This was a very cool concept. Someone who, from a user perspective, would decide what should happen in the software development. Very good solution. So we had a product owner now who would prioritize the backlog with us. This was the whole story in Scrum. You know that we discuss what we're going to do, what we can do, and the user decides what we do. It's not the project manager. The project manager is getting more and more aside. This is a good solution, and this was in, I even didn't write it down, the year, but it was after 2001, of course. And, well, there was still a problem, you know. Don't get discouraged. Complex projects are like onions. You have to peel the requirements one layer at a time. Yes, and they also make you cry. Yeah? This was still there. The question of complexity of the problem of the domain, what the users wanted, and we needed help. And this help came in 2004. And why did we need help? Well, the source code only shows the understanding of the developer, not the requirements described in any backlog or anywhere. It's important for the developer to understand what the user actually wants. And, well, we got domain-driven design. This is why we are all here. Domain-driven design solved this problem of transporting the understanding from the user to the developers. How did it do it? Well, it told us to talk with everybody, to talk the various languages that they talk, and to understand that we as developers have to deal with the language of the domain experts, their language. We have to talk with them in their domain lingo and understand as much as we can. Of course, we will never understand the whole domain, but this is not a good idea, to try to talk with them in technical terms. This is what domain-driven design delivered us to help this relation to get better. So this is where we want to go. And actually, domain-driven design told us it's not just that you think in the domain terms, you have to do it in the software too. This is what we know, and we have to create and communicate the model that of our understanding of what the domain is doing, our shared knowledge in graphics, in writing, in spoken. It's very important to express it in the language of our users. How do we get there? Well, there are several techniques that you all learned here or learned on some other conferences. What we do is we do a lot of event storming from Alberto Brandolini, who was here as well at KanDDDinsky 2 years ago, I think. He's here today. Oh, I have to search for him then. Thank you. This is Henning. You might know him. Stefan is here too. They're going to talk about domain storytelling tomorrow, another technique to find out what the users are actually doing. Always, both techniques try to get away from the technique, from the technical terms. The question is, what events are there? What domain events in event storming? And in domain storytelling, the question is, what role is doing what with which other role? So it's always about the domain, and domain-driven design gave us context maps for the big picture to understand that different parts of our domain, this is a Hamburgian domain of container ships who arrive in the harbor, and you have to plan their maneuver, and you have to know how deep the river is, where they are getting through, and you need carts, and you need a forecast of the tide of the sea to deal with all that. And you can create a context map with that and decide which is your core domain and all that stuff. This is all in domain terms. There is not much technical stuff in there. Of course, we start to fill in some ideas of which are quite technical. But this whole story helped us, and this was 2004, to really work with the user, with the product owner, to understand the domain complexity. So we talk about our domain. Our software should be rooted in the domain. It should be a mirror of the domain. We should see in the software the actual concepts of the domain. And, well, I hope that if you create your software following domain-driven design, this is at least what we do. This will not happen anymore. Yeah, you don't have to do that anymore because you work well with the user. You can talk with them. Another geek and poke. So we actually did a lot of things, but then there was still this problem with the operation people. I don't know if you have ever been in a huge bank or in an insurance company where you could experience really in the depth this problem, you know, with this wall in between and you sitting here, the others there, and you try to throw something over the fence and then they do something with it on the other side. Well, you see it already, devs and ops. We did something about it. We invented the DevOps stuff. We said we need cross-functional teams. We have to automate the whole stuff. We need a development pipeline. We have to monitor and measure and live in this cycle and do DevOps and create sort of a living together solution. We are doing this in our own teams. In the huge banks and insurances in Germany, it's still a while to go. You know, they are not there yet. Who is there yet? Who is doing this already in his company? Ah, great. Well, there's hope, you know. Okay, so this was 2009. It's already 10 years ago that they invented this story. And, well, those are the things, I think, where we changed our world. And I will now move on to the things that I see that we have to change, or where I know that in my company we are already on our way to change it. What are we doing? Well, oh yes, this is still in German. I didn't get it, I'm sorry. But I'm gonna translate it to whomever doesn't understand the words. A big problem, what software development teams are doing is if they come across a new system to build, they are only thinking about the future. Zukunft is the German word for future. What will we build? You know, we talk to the users, they explain us something, and then we just think about what will we do in the future. They forget to actually look at the Gegenwart, that's the present, the work the users are actually doing. And this is why domain storytelling and event storming are so valuable, because there you really try to find out, just from a domain point of view, what the work is, but be aware. Don't go too quickly to the question how they should work. Stay with what they are actually doing. We have seen this very, very strongly in a hospital in Germany once. The hospital needed a new software system because some laws were changing in Germany and they had to document how they took care of the people. You know, did we turn them around? Did we give them the medicine and all that stuff? They had to document this. And they came to us and said, could you help us to find the system that will help, that we can buy and install to do this work from now on or from next year on, when we have to do it because the laws are changing? And we said, yes, we know how to find a good system. And we talked with them and we observed how they were working. And these people in the hospitals at that time, they were doing something very interesting. They had a cartridge, a little wagon, with all the records of the patients in there, hanging in there. And whenever the doctor visited the patients, the sisters were following him with this wagon and gave him the record of the patient. Each time he went in there, these days it's with an iPad, probably, when you are in. I have not been in a hospital for a long time, so I just hope that they are doing it like this these days. And the doctor was writing stuff in there, and then they moved on. And if you observed what they were doing, you would see that the doctor would pull little colored pins on these records, on these patient records. And if you look at the wagon with all these patients' records in there, you could see all these colored pins on top, like an information system. And later on, the sisters took this wagon to their room, and they told us, well, now I see how many of our patients need a new medication, how many have to be sent off to some examines and things like that. And for us, this was a very important information system for those sisters. And with this information, we looked at software systems for the hospital area. And the problem with all these systems was you got a list of patients in there, and you could click on the name, and then the file would open, and to find out if the doctor said he needs a new medication, you had to go on tab 24, I don't remember, to find the X or the not X on this part of the story, and to read the new medication. So the sisters had much more work with the new system. They had to go through each patient to find out what to do. And from my point of view, what did they do when they programmed this system? They never saw how people are really working today, at those times in the hospital. They just looked from a data perspective or whatever, and thought of the future. So please, don't forget to think about how the people are working now before you go into the future. And one part of this story to look at how they work now came to us because we started to employ UX designers. We started to get people who had the job to help us to create software that was really beautiful and nice to work with. And they came with the idea, well, we have to understand how they are working now, not in the future. And we created a lot of very, very nice software systems. This is one that we did for the harbor of Hamburg, where the people work with to organize ships coming into the Hamburg harbor, because Hamburg is very complicated. It's a harbor for container ships, which is 40 kilometers from the sea, which is actually a stupid idea. But they did it, and it's very old, and it helps. Hamburg is living on it. And what we did in the last 2 or 3 years is that we really, really worked on the question, how do UX designers work well in cross-functional teams? How does this work? And the result looks like this. So we have a discovery track and a delivery track, but the important story here is the discovery track is not only for the UX designers, and the delivery track is not only for the software developers. They work in both tracks, okay? And then if we start a project, of course, some people are setting up the development environment and the DevOps infrastructure, and some people start to understand what the users need. User stories are probably already there, a UI concept, an architecture concept, and then we work like this. In the discovery track, the interaction designers and the software developers work together on a user story and create mock-ups in design studios. I'm going to tell you in a second what a design studio is, because it's a very, very nice idea. And this user story is implemented in the next iteration. So we always have the iteration N when the user story is created, and we have a mock-up, and the user approves the mock-up, and then we build it, and the user story is approved again. And in the discovery, there are UX designers and developers doing it, and down here with the design refactoring, the UX designers are as well in the delivery track. So they work in both tracks. And a design studio is something we learned from them is really cool. What happens there is that a team of, this were 4 people sitting together and thinking about a user story, how they would do it in the system, and they make a paper prototype, a mock-up. And each of them alone for 10 minutes. And then they explain to each other what they did, and they discuss their ideas, and then they do it again. In each of them alone, next iteration. So it's a very quick iterative process to come to a solution. I think this one was a software developer. This may be two. Yeah. Okay. But it's not about that. It's not about being pretty. It's about how will the interaction of the user with the system work. That's the question. And I'm sure that we are not at the end of this story. And the second thing that I think we have to discuss further, although I feel a bit like them here, they say digitalization is the new trend. Aha. And what have we done so far? The woman is asking the man. So we have to talk about that. And I want to show you a small video because I think it's really amazing. Look at that. Time is running down there. And around 2000, it's getting much quicker. Now we are speeding. iPhone is there, did you see? Yeah. Okay, so this happened already, you know? This happened to our workplace, and I think we have to talk about digitalization again and again to explain to people that we are already far out and that there is, of course, still some things to do, but this is what we have done to the world as well, of course. And, well, the last thing I want to show you is something, well, what did we do all those years? We improved the world somehow, our world, and of course the world of other people too. This is what we did. And I want to end with a little warning about improvement, because what we think an improvement might do is we think, well, over time, our performance will really, really go up. We change something and then, wow, you know. What actually improvement looks like, it looks like this. It gets more horrible and then better, but not like this, you know, not like all the consultants told us before. This is not what's happening. But what unfortunately happens a lot, that people start an improvement and at this point, they think, well, this is horrible. It will not work. We stop it, you know? Someone stops it. And it's just before the moment when it would go up, if you really insist. And this is why everybody hates improvement programs, okay? Don't fall into this trap. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the ride through time. I'm here for the rest of the day. Tomorrow I'm gone. I'm sorry. I actually have to go to Singapore to a logistic conference. So this will be fun, but hard too. But okay, thank you.